Welcome into Bengals Breakdown, an update for you guys on Joe Burrow. Nobody freak out. Burrow was not present at OTAs today for the Bengals, but only because it was a planned rest day. There's no setback. There's no freak out needed here. Simply put, Zac Taylor mixed up the dates. The media were going to be there. Here's what Taylor said post-practice today for the Bengals. We've given Joe a day off every week. I didn't time this out right. I thought you guys were here yesterday. Burrow threw yesterday. He hasn't gone more than 2 days in a row with throwing. It's all designed as the practice plan because there's no pitch count for Joe Burrow. It's just to not overwork him as he works his way back from his wrist injury. So everyone's going to have to relax. We can't freak out every time Burrow sits out of practice because guess what? This will happen at minicamp. He's not going to throw every day there, probably. He'll probably take a day off or so during training camp. You do the rest day now so you don't have another setback or calf strain or something in August. That's the whole point of it. So, is worth mentioning, is very important, but this is not a freak-out worthy story like I think some people might have made it out to be early on when he first didn't practice today at OTAs. Now, as you probably heard, Justin Jefferson got a massive contract from the Minnesota Vikings. So, I want to break down, in part on today's Bengals Breakdown, how this impacts Ja'Marr Chase and Tee Higgins. First off, the Justin Jefferson trade hopes are dead. I never really thought they had any credence to him, despite what friend of Joe Burrow's girlfriend at Kroger may have said at whatever. It never really made that much sense to me. It doesn't make sense for the Bengals or the Vikings with how both those franchises do business. So it's not going to happen. But it does significantly inform how the Ja'Marr Chase contract negotiations, whether it's this year or next year, will likely play out. So do you want the Bengals to pay Ja'Marr Chase as soon as possible? If you do, like today's video right now. Here's how the Jefferson contract breaks down, the overarching big picture numbers, right? A 4-year deal, $140 million, $110 million is guaranteed. The average is $35 million. Now, unlike some of the recent wide receiver contracts like Tyreek Hill, etc., at final year of the deal, it ain't fake. It isn't backloaded where it's a $30 million per year deal and the last year's $45 million to juice those figures. It's a real big fat contract, and it does move the actual bar for wide receiver money up pretty significantly in terms of the real money, that guaranteed money in particular there. So for Tee Higgins, there's no impact. He's not going to be in the conversation in the same way that Justin Jefferson's going to be in that conversation there. It's just that's not what the money looks like there. Does have a pretty massive impact on Chase. It's a massive one for him. Because if you're Ja'Marr Chase, you're going to go, why wouldn't I get the same contract or a little bit more? Or worst case, I settle for a little bit less. There are other wide receivers who are due for new contracts here. Amari Cooper, not in the same category. Brandon Ayuk maybe slots in just ahead of A.J. Brown behind Jefferson. If I were Ja'Marr Chase's camp, knowing that for the most part, these receivers have to wait until into year 4, after year 4, to get paid, I'd probably wait for CeeDee Lamb. Because what if CeeDee Lamb gets more than Justin Jefferson? And my take would be, you know what? I want more than Justin Jefferson right now. And maybe you're a bit more comfortable waiting to see that happen. Since you're only in year 3, you got time. You still got your rookie contract. You don't have to push as hard as Jefferson or Lamb are. That might make the most sense. So will the Bengals get a deal done with Chase before the season? Y for yes, N for no. Sound off for me at the pinned comment of today's video. Look, my expectation is they won't. It'd be great if they did. I think doing things with more urgency only leads to good results, right? And I will say that more receivers entering their 4th year got paid this year than what we're accustomed to seeing. Waddle, Smith. But there is a reason for Chase to be patient. He's going to get paid. You can wait another year. Unless the Bengals make it worth your while to not wait. And if the Bengals want to be aggressive and say, hey, we'll give you the same Justin Jefferson contract, which is a lot of money. It's a lot of money. Maybe a bit of an overpay. Then you probably see the Cowboys pay CeeDee Lamb just the same. Because I can make a better argument for Lamb versus Chase than maybe Lamb versus Jefferson. Plus, if Chase waits a year, the salary cap goes up. You can make a better argument. Maybe Lamb gets paid. So I assume that all sides are going to elect to wait here and might make it a bit more palatable from a cash flow standpoint for the Bengals as well. The highest paid wide receivers for now look like this. Brandon Ayuk is going to slot in somewhere in this top 5, I believe. CeeDee Lamb will slot in somewhere in the top 2. Jamar Chase, when he signs, will slide in somewhere in the top 3, minimum, depending on the timings there. Maybe put Lamb in the top 3 for a timing perspective as well. The receiver market has changed significantly. But we're also kind of on the back end of those guys getting paid. Guys like Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, up for new contracts in the not-too-distant future. They're also a little bit older, and maybe their numbers don't quite look the same. But the average per year of highest paid receiver has grown by $5 million this offseason alone, and it's a real $5 million, not a backloaded $5 million. Most impactfully, the guaranteed number, which has always been the sticking point for a franchise like the Bengals, has skyrocketed. It was $75 million entering this offseason. It jumped to $84 million with A.J. Brown. The Jefferson to Brown difference is $26 million. The Jefferson to Cooper Kupp difference is $35 million guaranteed. It's an entire contract. The Bengals have never been a big, fat, guaranteed contract player. And with the way they structure contracts, by the way, it kind of maybe makes more sense to wait a year for Chase because you're not really going to save the same amount of money you would normally save. Most teams would end up saving. Like the Jefferson cap hit it got cut in half this year, by the way, by paying him, which is that's how contracts work. They don't even pay him more than $20 million for 2 years. They saved significant money by paying Justin Jefferson and having him play out a year on the 5th year and the franchise. They saved a ton of money. White teams do it and pay it early, right? The guaranteed money, as we'll get into, it could be a slight sticking point. Now, you can get the Fanatics, or you can go to Fanatics and get the Bengals NFL Draft Hat by going to chatsports.com/Bengals Draft Hat. A couple different styles, fits, colors, etc. The link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. It's chatsports.com/Bengals Draft Hats. Link again, comments and the description, different styles, colors, kind of a 3D effect. Make sure you check it out. The reality is for Justin Jefferson and the wide receiver market this offseason, it's no longer just highest paid wide receiver. These top-tier players are now in the highest paid non-quarterback market, which, at this point, that's kind of like low-end starting caliber quarterback money. You got Baker Mayfield in this category. Daniel Jones, which is kind of funny, too. Jefferson makes $35 million per year. That is more than Nick Bosa, and that list in the next 2 years will look very different. That's how all these lists look, except for running back. Running back has not gone at the same rate. Every other position basically has. Safety's been a little bit stagnant as well. Now, from a guaranteed money perspective, this does matter. Remember, Bosa and Jefferson share the same agent, by the way, as Joe Burrow does. $110 million fully guaranteed. That is a little bit less than Nick Bosa and might make it a little bit more palatable for a team like the Bengals to get that deal done, hopefully sooner rather than later because it is Jamar Chase. It's the 3rd year, so I'm not as freaking out, entering the 4th year, I suppose. Not as concerned about getting it done now, but you've got like a year to get it done. So I want it done before minicamp next season. So don't miss out on any Bengals news. We've got you covered, updates, news, rumors, OTA coverage as well. Hit that minicamp coverage next week. I think Jamar Chase will be there. Hit that sub button. Tee Higgins will not be. YouTube.com/Bengals TV. Look, the Jamar Chase deal will eventually get done. It's a matter of when, not if. And I would not be surprised if it was a record-setting contract. The guaranteed money is going to be the tricky bit. How do you balance that all out there? Can you kind of change the total guaranteed versus the fully guaranteed, which is normally just a timing thing of like, hey, we're not gonna guarantee your 2nd year salary and your 3rd year salary now, but because we gave you such a large signing bonus, and if you do a rolling guarantee structure, it's actually a practical guarantee of you'll get it because we're not going to cut you after a year, but it's just not guaranteed at signing. Maybe that's how the Bengals end up trying to meet halfway with Chase and his team there. In the end, you probably got to make Chase an exception for the way you historically have done your contracts. Just like you did Joe Burrow. That's what happens when you have a superstar playmaker, right? I mean, Jamar Chase played 12 games in 2022, and he had 1,000 yards. He had quarterback issues last year and still had 1,200 yards. This is Wherever you're ranking your young receiver, it's Chase, Lamb, Jefferson in some order. You pay that guy. The real question is, what happens if you make him the highest paid wide receiver? Would you make Chase the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL? 1 for yes, 2 for no. Sound off for me in the comments section. Bleacher Report continues to advocate that, you should consider trading away Tee Higgins because, we don't look short-term at all in these types of things. They proposed 5 Tee Higgins trades the Bengals would have to consider. So I'm going to break these down here and give my thoughts on them, and you can get mad if it's in the headline, but if you watch the videos, you know how I feel about these things. Number 1, Bengals get a 2nd and a 5th round pick from Arizona. The Bengals would not taken that deal pre-draft. Does it make sense? The Bengals, I'll save my overall thoughts. We know what they're trying to do. They're trying to win games right now. Future draft capital doesn't help them right now. How does that make sense? Trade idea number 2. Bengals get a 2nd and a 4th from the Lions. Now, it's a 4th versus a 5th. That Cardinals pick will probably be fringe top 40. That Lions pick is going to be like pick 58. So the difference there between a 2nd and an early 5th and a late 4th, it's like the same trade. It's not really any better from that perspective. Trade number 3 is the Bengals get a 2nd and a 5th from the Chargers. So it's like the same trade as number 1, but I think the Chargers will be better than Arizona, so it's worse. Why even put that in there? Trade number 4, Bengals get a 2nd, a 4th, and DeMario Douglas. This is at least better. You're getting a receiver back. I don't know if you need that. That 2nd and 4th could be decently early round picks. If you were committed to trading Tee Higgins, no matter what, this is the best offer. But this is not I got to consider this. It's DeMario Douglas. It's a 2nd and a 4. It's better than you get in the comp pick. It's not the Bengals' plan. Number 5 is the same trade as number 2, except it's from the Commanders, which, by the way, Commanders have Luke McCaffrey and Jahan Dotson and Terry McLaurin and all these and Diami Brown. I don't get a receiver back? This is actually not a big need for Washington, by the way. I feel like Bleacher Report just doesn't know what they're talking about there. Do any of those trade ideas actually interest you? T for trade, P for pass, sound off in the comments. To me, none of them interest me. We know what the Bengals' plan is, right? The plan is to win games now. They have built their roster, structured their contract around their contracts to fit Tee Higgins' big fat franchise tag in there. Now we can revisit this if the season falls apart again, if it craters, but the Bengals want to win games right now. Why would they trade T for future picks? They could not during this year's draft and gotten players out them now. Meanwhile, Higgins sounding off on his future. Obviously, I don't know what the situation will be right now, but it would be bittersweet. As far as me come back, I would love to come back. I grew as a man in the past 4 years here, and I grew as a player. Good friendships, great relationships with the people of Cincinnati. The fans are great. So I would definitely love to be here. But if it's not the situation, then that's not the situation. I think we know how this plays out, guys. Bleacher Report apparently doesn't, but I think we do. You got one more run with Higgins. After that, we'll see how things fall. We'll see how things go from that perspective, but I think you got one more run, and these silly, mediocre trade offers for what the Bengals are asking for, it's not going to make them consider a trade.